Hi, so today's discussion is something very straightforward, and it is not something I normally do, but due to some recommendation and consensus, I needed to make it because many people find it relevant. So many people are doing applications and they struggle through and get at least one interview out of about 50 applications. And this is something that you cannot gamble with. You need to get that particular job when you get an interview. So you being probably an MLA transiting into a BMS role, you being an assistant getting into maybe a nursing role, you being in a band 5 going to a band 6, or a band 6 looking up to how to be in a good composure for a managerial role. These are necessary things to keep in mind, and I think introducing you to the necessary key points for you to note prior to your interview is really important. And this is a conversation, not like a lecture. And just like I'm sitting here, this is how you should see your interviews, not like any straight composure, trying to be any professional and guiding yourself so careful. And that puts you on a platform where you are not able to express yourself with the flexibility needed at an interview. So just before we start with an introduction, there are some key things that you should know, and I have given it a topic as posture clues and mental preparations. This is what you should know even before you attend your interview. 1, you should keep an eye contact. When you're speaking to people, you should keep an eye contact, speak with them, and you should smile. So smile and be friendly at your job interview. There is nothing like a fear at your job interview. You need to be flexible, relaxed, smart, be friendly, and do not treat your interviewers as your examiners. They are not yet to examine and interrogate you, trying to assess you strictly and mark you falsely, but they are just to bring the best out of you, to weigh how best you fit into the role, and mostly how good you are to be trained for the role that you are applying for. There shouldn't be any tension, because tension will cause you to forget. And I've told you, this is just a normal conversation. Assumptions are the only secret that you have, and pretense and fabrications are not sins at job interview. They are very good qualities and skills you need to pass your job interview, or be it a scholarship interview or whatever that you are being interviewed for. And lastly, you have to speak reasonable lies, because most of the questions that will come up are things that you have to fabricate, reason through, set an example, give a scenario. And if you are not good enough in reasoning quickly and fabricating stories to fit in that particular instance, it causes you to fumble and gamble and then get stuck on the way and trying to reason, think, giving a clue to them that this guy is thinking in the course of the interview and trying to find something to say, and that gives you a lag in your conversation. So you should note that. By then, let's start an interview. And before I continue, please follow this by clicking the like button and subscribe to this channel. And most scientific, clinical, diagnostic investigations will be explained in here, and I believe you're going to like it. Please like this video. Thank you very much. Now let's continue with this. So in a job interview, you would definitely be asked to introduce yourself. And in your introduction, of course, it depends whether you have worked in that particular job and transiting from one role or band to the other, or it's a new place altogether. They all depends, but there are clues in here. If it's a new place that you don't know them and you've been invited, remember you were sent an interview and you've been given names of your interviewers. Just to familiarize yourself and break that tension, you need to be able to memorize their name. So for instance, you go in there, you are asked to introduce yourself. Good morning, Helen and Stacy. Good morning, Katie and Joan. Good morning, Sandra and Peter. So immediately you make that mentioning of the name. You've given them that idea that this person already knows us. And imagine mentioning somebody's name, all of a sudden you become friendly. That code of protocols and officials, and then that kind of standardization is broken down. Now we are co-equal. We are on a friendly basis. We can speak now. So you identify your interviewers, like I've mentioned, smile, honor the invitation by giving thanks. Oh, thank you very much for inviting me for this interview. And you just make a very short introduction of yourself, which mentions your name, your HCPC registration, or your nursing registration, or whatever. You give them the idea that you are compassionate, selfless, hardworking, and resilient, and you have the requisite training and experience that you need to for the role that you have applied for. So if it is nursing, you mentioned that. If it's not like a detailed one, but an overview that you've got those requisite skills, and in, for instance, as a biomedical science in the Hematology, Coagulation, and Transfusion. Say, okay, good morning, Katie and Sandra. Thank you very much for inviting me for this interview. My name is Julius Bafo. I am a biomedical scientist and registered ACPC personnel, and I've got good experience in this field from coagulation, transfusion, and hematology. And I have the requisite skills required for this interview. I am present here to honor the invitation that I was given for this interview and to have a conversation further regarding my job application. And in addition, it could be that it is the exact same place that you are currently working where you want to get a higher band. In that case, you know them already, they know you already, so you should make some few statements that boost your morale and to let them know how familiar you are with the situation of the lab, why you have applied for this and what you can bring on board, even though there will be detailed interview questions that will request for this. But you are just bringing them ahead of time that, yes, I have worked here with you and I know the phenomenal job that you are doing and how best this place fits my family and myself, giving a good training and a quality service. And I know how the workload is surged at the moment. And at this time, you need people who are strong, competent, reliable, available, and selfless, ready to support our patients with facilitated diagnostic procedures and good reporting. And I believe that I fit into this and ready to support, and why I applied for this role. So these some few things just to let them know you know what's going on and you know why you have applied and you know what you are bringing on board. That's a general thing for them to know that you know what is going on. And then you also give them a clue of you applying for this job because of your long-term service you want to have in here as well, because you are applying it because you want to continue working with them even as you also seek an improvement in your job role. And before we go to the actual interview questions, I'm just giving you these rules, and these rules are necessary to protect you for your job acquisition. The fact is that, one, most people applying are from roles that they have never worked in the field or the level that they are applying for. For instance, they are MLAs applying for a band 5 or band 6. They are either persons who worked outside the country and trying to apply for a job within, and they are being interviewed as international applicants. So in this case, there are certain things that you will need to know before you go and mess up. The idea is that when you apply for a job, it is not exact managers that do the first sorting. So the system is there to sort out and people whose content fit into the key point for that particular application are pre-selected before the actual interviewers go through and say, you are selecting this, we are picking up this person for an interview or that. Before you are selected to come for an interview, it's never by mistake. There is something necessary within why you have been called. So it is not the time for you to play pathetic, passionate, trying to please based on passion and emotions. That does not work in there. You are going to be legitimately recruited based on your quality. And therefore, there are key things you should know. One is there is no need to mention where you got your experience from unless it is to your advantage, or it has been requested to be mentioned, which is normally not the case. Else, you go and mention when I was an MLA and I was an MLA and I was an assistant, and in that case, you are just disproving yourself in many ways, because there could be persons who have worked already as BMSs who just want transition from one job to the other. And you've come here, declare yourself that you've never even been a BMS, or you've never been a nurse, or you've never even worked on that level of a role before. It is a deformation of your quality. 2, unless asked, never mention those, but introduce to them your experiences. Never accuse or condemn. So, give an example. You say, when I was working with one colleague, he wasn't working really well, and I tried to show him this is really a damn disgrace and a damn degradation of your character. Do never condemn anybody in your interview. I'm saying this because most people don't know, and they make some examples, scenarios, and statements, even though they are trying to prove a point, but at the end, it shows that they are condemners, and people who recruit never want that. Then always drive the question into an answer you can explain. So they will ask you a question. So you are the one who should drive the answer toward a path where you are stronger in terms of defending it. So when they ask you to give a scenario where you resolved an issue, it is a fit for you to set an example that you are familiar with, that you can flow so easily. if they ask you any question, bring it to where you have a stronger point to prove. And that is why I make that statement. And remember that examples are your friend in a job interview. Scenarios are the only way to prove yourself in a job interview. So in about 90% of your answers, you are going to set a scenario. So put in point. That is another rule. Next one is always remember patient safety and patient first. It is part of the values of the NHS or values of most job firms that you put the patient first and their safety is really necessary. So in most cases, relate the reasons behind your answers to patient safety and putting patient first. And then remember the NHS values as well in the course of your explanation. These are some of the rules that you should remember. Always request for a question you didn't hear to be repeated. Don't force to answer any question that you did not hear properly. Example, those who are coming from outskirts of the country. For instance, you just moved from one country to another whose language is not strictly English and the accent isn't like the white or the Caucasians, and you'll be asked a question and they speak really faster and then you start answering. Ask, what did you say? Could you please repeat the question in a very modest way? I would be glad if you can repeat the question for me. There is no harm in that than answering it in a way that looks as if you are dumb because you didn't hear what they asked you, and any answer you're going to give is definitely going to be outside the net. So just be very careful. Do not fumble. End your answer where you feel flexible or you feel confident. In the course of your speaking, in your own reasoning quotient, you will realize that you are short of words or you've lost the way or you've missed some things or you are not too conversant in the proceedings. End it shortly. Don't go on gambling, fumbling, struggling, tiring, and trying to prove a point where there is no sense in the statement that you are making. Make things very short for your own self. Example, especially in an instance where you are not so good at answering that question. Make it that short. In that case, they know that you don't have much knowledge about it and you end it short. And then what you can also say in addition to support that part, that you will heed to protocols and learning in case you meet such instances. So don't force yourself. And I would say smile and giggle. Give a good smile at all time throughout your interview. Feel free, even if you have a bottle of water, you can open the water and drink it. There is no harm in that. Nobody checks it. That it is not a disrespect in this kind of area in an European region. There is no disrespect trying to take water while speaking with an elderly. It's not that protocol as to other places. That's just what I want you to know. And never mention a mistake that you had which harmed a patient. Don't go and mention any form of mistake because you'll be asked, in what time did you make an error at workplace and how did you resolve it? Don't go and say anything that was so harmful to a patient. Be very, very wise. And then make sure that you end that error with a solution, that you follow the protocol or you asked a senior and it was resolved quickly, amicably, softly, without any risk. Set such an example. Don't go and mention any harmful scenarios that rather put you to a negative side instead of you being recruited. So put these things in mind whilst you are being interviewed. Then you can proceed with very good interview questions. Those that I would find it necessary to give you an example, I would do. Those that I will just brush through as well, I will do the same. So now let's go forward with that. Why did you apply for this role? So you'll be asked, definitely, why did you, after your intro, I ask you to introduce yourself, you'll be asked, why did you apply for this role? Or a similar question will be asked. Now, it's an impression from job description and person specification. Of course, everybody who applied for a job needed to read the job description, person specification, essential criteria, and that is why what you saw in there and some few things you found about that particular firm or trust, that's why you applied for that job. So for me, to make it easier, I downloaded the job description and read the necessary criteria, essential person specifications required for this job role. I juxtaposed it with my own experience, and I believe that I fit very well for this role. And this is not the only statement you should make, but I'm giving you a clue how you can start. And you should be able to familiarize yourself with what the trust lack and what they are looking for at the moment. Facility accomplishment, trust website, quality and innovations, the UCAS, IBMS, and ISO standards that that particular firm work with can be mentioned as why you want to work in that particular place. Because everyone wants to work according to standards, and a place that have UCAS accreditations, IBMS registrations, the ISO standard of performance, UCAS exercises, IPEX trainings and exercises. These things make that facility highly standardized and people feel okay to work with such facility. And if they have any good records of CQC records, you can make mention of that. Then your phenomenal work knowledge, expertise for their current demand. So based on their current demand, like workload surge, cross-site working, 24-hour pattern flexibility on the rota, you are able to fit into it. So you make mention of that because these are very essential things. So you read on that job description that the surge of workload is really high and it demands people who are available and who are very selfless, who are able to fit into the 24-hour working pattern and be flexible for rotas. And you are ready to do that with your expertise. And the mindset is to help patient care and improve on general healthcare in the nation. And that is your quota to play as a good citizen or as a good person within the country. And you make such mentions, and this fits into what they need at that moment. And that gives you a plus to be employed for that job. Your quality and training and learning is also important. So you make mention that you've had that from the website, you've read how good they are in training and learning and continuous professional development opportunities in that place. And this gives them the idea that you're a person who is ready to learn. And this is very important for that, as well as the NHS and patient care, their values and everything. You can make just a brush through. You can mention something like that. Innovation, staff and management. You watch their intranet, or probably you follow them on LinkedIn. You follow them their social media platforms and see how innovative their staffs are and how improved the hospital is, how they are able to improve healthcare in that area. So these are some few mentions you can make when you are asked why you've applied for that particular job in that hospital. And lastly, you make sure that your statement should be unequivocal in terms of having a long-term stay with them. The issue that most firms trust are facing is that they employ people and shortly they leave after they've been trained. And this is what the trust don't want to experience in future. Therefore, they need people who make accurate statement and reliable statement which prove that they are happy with where the job is situated, they are ready to work with them in a long-term basis, and they plan to stay with their families, to move or relocate with their families to that area. So make sure your statements are unequivocal in terms of working with them for long, using where the facility is, the environment, the time, and the town as an example. And this gives you a plus in terms of being employed. Now, you'll be asked about your experience. So your experience in the job role should give some very key mentions, and these are necessary for you to be recruited in that particular job. 1, a short education background should be mentioned. 2, I'll go into details on that, but let's be very precise on here. The first one, just like I've mentioned, a short education background. 2, work experience that you have had requisite or necessary for this particular role, and your communication skills that you have should be mentioned. Your team working skill that you have should be mentioned, and you should mention how you are familiar with the LIMS, laboratory information systems that be used in the lab and any other firm. If there is any software, if you are applying as a nurse or whatever you are, the tools, the softwares that are used into, for instance, if you're a midwife and there is a pathograph that is used, you can make mention of that, and whatever softwares, whatever tools that you implement whilst in the course of your work, you can make mention of that. And then you should be able to mention 2 other things, which is IQA and then EQA. The IQA is internal quality assurance services that are within your firm, and then the external quality assessment services that come from external bodies to assess your quality, your standard of performance in the lab as a whole should be mentioned as well. Now, going quickly on each of them. So make sure that your answer as to your experience should highlight these key points that I've mentioned. Going into them, a short introduction about your education background. Of course, you can mention you have maybe you started as a general science student, you have maybe GC, SE, you have diploma, you have degree, you have master's. If you've got PhD, you can mention that. And whichever level of academic achievement that you have, you can make mention of them, even though it's not going to legitimately grant you the job, but it gives them an idea of your scope and how experienced you are or how diverse you are. And going specifically to a biomedical science role, remember, you focus on the key skills and the department that you have worked in. And if it's an assistant role, you can even mention how you are careful with sample quality, volume transport, and containers, pre-analytical checking before even samples are sent to the BMS. If you're a BMS, how you are able to, even PID checking is relevant for your role. Pre-analytical checks are really important. And then, of course, your validation authorization, some key things like dilution of sample and maybe a plasma replacement, film reporting, serological testing, blood product ordering management systems, IT tools. You mentioned all these as part of your experiences, and that gives you a plus as well. Your communication skills are important, especially if you are applying as a band 6. You should know how to communicate both verbally and written. You should be able to have good experience in written document and how to arrange, how you are familiar with communicating with your colleagues, introducing them with a very clear and precise language. And this gives them an idea of how you fit into that role. And of course, that's really important. Being a good team working player is very important for you to be employed in that, and it is something that you can also mention as well, because you are definitely going to work with a group of people, how to coordinate with them, how to hand over to them, how to receive information from them, how to guide others not to make mistakes, and you yourself not to make mistakes. It's also important in this job firm, especially being a biomedical scientist. So this teamwork thing is also important to mention when you are trying to introduce to them your experiences and your laboratory information system. So we have a lot of laboratory information system like the Clinicist WinPath. Some people used to have Telepath, and with Magentos, Epic, or PathNet is also used in other places. You've got a lot of middlewares like Remisol and the full blood count Beckman Coulter analyzers. You've got the expert in the Stego analyzers as well that also people use, IHCOM in the IH500 and 1000 analyzers, Sysmex, EPU, and Abbott Alinity is also there. So depending on what laboratory information system you've used before, you must make mention of them. One of the interviews I attended, the person said, you don't have to assume we know. You have to tell us exactly what you have done or what you are able to do. So never assume that they know anything already. Unless it is mentioned, it is not done. That is the key thing you should know in your job interview, that if you don't mention it, they don't know. So whatever you think as a key thing to mention, you should be able to mention it. And concerning IQA, internal quality assurance or internal quality assurance services, in there you run quality controls, you run repeatabilities after engineers analyzer repair, you run comparisons on all analyzers to see how they are able to give precise results or accurate results. Supposing patient results are run on different analyzers, how well are we that both results are quite accurate and reliable and reportable? That is necessary. Now, external quality assessment, for instance, we normally have a NIQUAS sample come through that individuals run, they report, they collate all the results from different trusts and they give a report based on the correct answers. And this gives them an assurance that there is a cohort of performance from different laboratories. It means that people are performing near to what is expected. This is to give that assurance that there is reliable results wherever a patient goes to. And this is an external form of assessing the laboratories. And if you participate in these, it means that you have that experience, you are working to standard as well. So this is some of the things you should say regarding your experience. Now, let's see some specific questions that you could be asked as well. You could be asked, what do you know about CPDs? So CPDs means continuous professional development. And in every field, there are CPDs that you have to do along as you work with them. That is renewed from time to time, either yearly or every 2 years, or however the protocol says. Now, if we are to define the relevance of the continuous professional development, a training which aims at bringing all professionals to a cohort of national and international standards, which ensures accuracy and quality in the laboratory practice. So we expect that people work according to particular standards and you are trained to work to a particular protocol. And this is done as a way to bring all persons working within that particular department or firm or area to a good level of practice where we don't lack in anything. So what I know, you know, what you know, another person know. So it doesn't matter who runs a patient resource, it is still reliable. So that's very important. That's the idea of CPDs. So vital in ensuring patient safety by equipping laboratory professionals with the explicit knowledge and skill. That is the relevant thing regarding CPDs. So you have to mention that you are involved in all CPDs, both in-house and external. You are, for instance, I'm registered on the Future NHS platform, which introduces topics and teaching you knowledge and literatures and practical things that enhances the knowledge and skills you need to practice. And if you mention that you form a part of the Future NHS platforms and you are registered to the workspace, you attend to IBMS congresses and seminars, and any way you participate in an activity that improves your skills, you need to mention it. You participate in NICWAS exercises. NICWAS morphology comes, I think, from time to time. Some of them are parasite reports, some of them are blood film commenting. You do all this, and then in transfusion, they also get serology exercises and antibody panels. So all these come through in order to improve on your report. And we treat all NICWAS samples as patient samples. You let it go through the same protocol as it would have been done if it were a patient sample. So this also gives them an idea of how good you are both internally and externally in your training. So you should make mention of that. And then, for instance, we have ECAT morphology. That is an external quality assurance training and education. It's an online morphology where you get registered by your trust and you can log in there and see some morphology on the system, and you're able to click, this is a lymphocyte, this is a neutrophil. IPEX exercises also come through in transfusion firms, and all these are necessary for your CPDs or your continuous professional development as a biomedical scientist. So you should have an idea of all these as a part of a way to bring all professionals to a cohort of national standard. And this is very necessary. Some specific questions that you could also be asked is, what would you do when you get a new analyzer? Now, there are some things that if you've not done it before and you are to imagine it, it's going to be very difficult, especially if you've never practiced before. So this interview is to be very good at your advantage and help you to understand some of these things. So when you get a new analyzer, one, you are not the one who is going to fit that analyzer into your system. An engineer will come through and set the analyzer. So it is an engineer from the manufacturer who is going to set the analyzer and fit in for use. After they have arranged or assembled the analyzer, what he's going to do is to run controls and see the validations and check how the analyzer is able to produce results. And he will do a validation by running quality controls, and then he documents every result that comes out of it, and he gives you a document that gives the information or data about the precision, the accuracy, and the key parameters of that particular analyzer will be provided to you. Now, what the laboratory will do is a further confirmation of whatever the engineer has done, because you have the document, you have the precision values that he has done, he has the repeatabilities that he has done. So what you are going to do is to make sure the analyzer is going to work the exact same way other analyzers are performing. So what the BMS to do is to run quality controls, the internal quality controls that all other analyzers of the same kind are being run. So if it is a full blood count analyzer, there are other full blood count analyzers, and what you do is that you run QCs in the morning, the afternoon, and in the evening, and you run calibrators that also give an idea of the analyzer's performance. So you will do all these as quality control, a first way of knowing how that analyzer functions internally. You set off sample according to the SOP and you do repeatability. That repeatability is a precision exercise to see if I give this analyzer a sample and I run it about 20 times, how different are the results, the consecutive results going to be from each other. That's what we mean by precision. So you get about 20 samples, you do repetition of 10 or 5 for each of them, and then you see the different margins for how repeated they are and how different they are, and that will be calculated on the analyzer and you'll be able to see it. So all that you are going to do is to assess the precision, see the quality or accuracy, see the linearity and reportability of the ranges that come. And lastly, how the analyzer will fit into the other analyzers. So the other analyzers are running already and are performing for the patient. So you get a sample, you run on all analyzers, including the one that has just come through as new. And you see if that result is comparable, reportable, consistent amongst the other analyzers. You bring all this data, present it to your line manager or your manager, and they are able to see it, verify it, and accept the analyzer into use. If there are any other communication they have to make, they will make it to the engineers or the manufacturer. So what you should not do is not to be the one who will review it and accept it, because it's not your role. What you should do is to check the precision, the accuracy, the linearity, the repeatability, and how the analyzer fit into the already existing analyzers. And you present all your data onto your manager and they will confirm it. So this is all that you're going to do when you get a new analyzer. Now tell us a time you made a mistake and how you resolved it. The important thing you should know about this question is that you are not going to fault yourself. The mistake should, I've already mentioned this, that the mistake should not be a one that puts a patient at risk. And the mistake should not be a one that was never resolved. Always set a scenario, an example that gives you that platform that one, you were able to resolve it either through the SOP or through a consultation with a colleague or a manager. And two, it took a very short while without risk to resolve it. And there was a good progress after that error. That makes it look like when there is an error, you are proactive to resolve it. You seek the various platforms that gives you a good resolution, which could be your SOP, your manager. And two, you are eager to get it resolved, and you resolve and progress. And make sure that you make a good composure of yourself when you are setting an example for this. Not like somebody when there is an error is trying to resolve something and being in a very hasty, creating more errors than the error that has already happened. Make sure composure is a great thing in your interview, and feel relaxed and set good scenarios. So the key things is to test your honesty, how honest you are. Never say you have never made a mistake. You are not a deity. You are not a god. You make mistakes. Even the managers themselves, they make more mistakes. So everyone make mistakes. Never mention it anywhere that you've never made mistakes. This tests your ability to follow the SOP, your willingness to seek for assistance, always answer by certain scenario, quick thinking and resilience to resolve. Make sure your answer conclude that you were able to resolve by SOP or manager. I've told you already. Ensure you make them believe it was resolved in the shortest possible time. And then time, no risk. You were optimistic and composed. Lovely. What are the responsibilities of a Band 6 BMS? Now, this one I'm not going to rush through. I'm going to read them line by line. And it's not something different from what you know, but you should pay attention to these necessary things. One, perform basic to specialized tests across Hem, Coag, Transfusion. If it's not Haematology and Transfusion, if it is Biochemistry, you do the same. If it's Microbiology, you do the same. Whatever firm you are, if it's a nursing role, the necessary things required as a Band 6 to do, you mentioned that. So as a BMS, I would say to perform basic to specialized tests across Hem, Coag, Transfusion, perform complex analysis, and give professional interpretation where required. Bridge between trainee and section managers by assisting in the management of the routine organization. So if you're a Band 6, you should be a manager by default. So you should be able to bridge between your top managers and the assistants and Band 5s. So you should be able to collate, organize the day in and day out activities. You should be able to do time management. You should ensure that the work progresses or flow accurately, and you make sure that enough work are being done in a shortest possible time. That gives you the advantage that when you are employed, or if you are employed, you'll be able to organize both yourself and then the working field to make sure more work is done within a very short time. And don't forget to mention this. And then the next thing I would say is participate in ensuring standards of quality and accuracy. So you should be able to mention accuracy and standards in the work as part of what you know as a Band 6 does. So a Band 6 is able to ensure that whatever is being done in the course of the routine job is accurate and precise. So that makes you a Band 6. You should ensure that all things are worked or being done according to standard and you are ensuring people are following the protocols or the standard operating procedures, you're able to perform first line of analyzer repair. And this is not a joke, because as far as you are working with devices and machines, there is going to be a lot of troubleshooting to be done in the course of the day, and you should have knowledge as in where to go, how to find information in resolving analyzer issue, basic things, and then if it gets worse, how to put a note on there that this analyzer shouldn't be used, how to communicate with the external bodies and engineers to come in and repair. You should be able to liaise between you and the manufacturer's engineers so that they are able to know what's going on, and if they have any information, you set an example that you are able to liaise with them even on phone, where you get good information and resolve it without needing an engineer to come over. And that shows how accurate and consistent you would be when you are employed, and that's a good thing. As a band 6, is able to communicate effectively both internal and external, and also with colleagues as well as with the clinical team, so that there is an easier way of resolving emergency. And that's an important thing as a band 6. You should be able to call the wards, liaise with them on important matters. As a matter of fact, many people on the clinical field have exactly no idea, or very limited idea, what goes on in the diagnostic firm, and an accurate communication and a very good way of liaising with them eases down tension and makes it easier for you to work not under pressure. And that's an important thing as a band 6. And the last thing I would say is to actively participate in team meetings and able to liaise with national blood banks to support or services in crucial moments. You have to be able to attend interviews. So as a band 6, these are some of the things that you state is able to attend team meetings and communicate with external officials, blood banks, and see how to resolve crucial things. So that's an overview of a band 6 role, and you should be able to mention this. A specific theoretical or practical question that you could be asked in the course of your interview. 1. What are the blood requirements for pregnant women? That is in transfusion. It's automatic that if on emergency, it's definitely going to be an O neg, and it should be a KEL neg. I've explained in my previous video. It should be a CMV neg. So the reason is that O neg has no A, B, antigens on the surface that the pregnant woman can react to. 2, we want KEL negative because KEL antibodies affect the erythropoiesis of fetus, and therefore all expectant mothers and all other women in the childbearing age are expected to have a KEL antigen negative blood in transfusion. That's up to 60 years. You shouldn't give them any unit that is KEL positive. And then the CMV is to protect the baby. CMV is cytomegalovirus, and this is part of the protocol to protect all babies from that infection, and therefore CMV negative is expected as far as the woman is still pregnant. But if it's in labor or after labor, you don't need to select the CMV negative blood. So the requirement for a pregnant woman is CMV neg, KEL neg, and if it's emergency, it should be an O neg, and if it's not emergency, it should be patient-specific blood group that should be selected. And further, if the patient has records of a phenotype being done, you should select the compatible blood according to the patient's phenotype. That is when they have records of their phenotype done long before probably their pregnancy. So that's a clue for that question. And how did you use your interpretation skills in hematology lab? Or tell us where you were working that you encountered a problem and how you did resolve it. So you will set a scenario. I've been telling you are going to set scenarios throughout. For instance, I was working and I got patient results on the Remisol, which is the middleware, and I realized the graph was looking quite haphazard. When I got the sample, I checked and I looked, it was quite lipemic. I spun the sample down, did plasma replacement, I ran it, and it was so clear, the graph was so good, and I did the calculation for the RBC indices with the MCAC and the MCH, and I reported it. That made it quite easier. And you can have another scenario. For instance, you were working and you realized one of the analyzers or 3 of them had shut down all of a sudden. You went through and you realized that the screens were off. You read through your protocol and realized that if the analyzers are shut down and the screen are not working, you go through a pattern of shutting the analyzer from the smallest to the main, and then when you are bringing it on, you switch them on from the head or the main analyzer to the minor ones that are attached to the parent analyzer. You followed that protocol and the screen came on within a very short time and your samples continued running, and it was so easier for you to progress with this, and the standard operating procedure you followed really helped you You set a scenario, there was a case, of course, and there was a protocol you followed, and then there was a resolution. And even if you follow the STAR way of resolving a case, that is the situation, the task you did, or attention that you gave to it, and the resolution, it's able to give you a good example that has been set and resolved now, just like I have given you. And you should be able to set that the example favors you, it gives you a proactive plus as they write good things about how you are answering the questions, and this gives them an idea that you don't wait for problems to recur or go on to other people's shifts, but you try to follow the procedures and try and resolve the issue. And that's a very good example how you were able to resolve that issue. And there are other questions that you can also answer. Tell us a scenario where you worked under pressure. And then you working under pressure does not mean there is a force on you or something. But if you've got too much samples on you that you use a time management strategy to resolve it, that's a plus for you. If there is a pressure like a major hemorrhage, 3 major hemorrhage at a time, you could state in your statement that there was a major hemorrhage, 2 at a time, where you had to communicate with the clinical team, and in your conversation you were able to assess and rank how crucial the moments are, and you assured them that you will do. That's a good composure. And you arrange your racks one after the other, making sure that you focus on the test and you focus on cross-matching one, and then you go to the next. And in the course of cross-matching, you communicate with the clinical team and you assure them the presence of emergency units at the various satellite fridges. And this gives them an idea that you are someone who knows how to, 1, be composed at a tensious moment, 2, communicate in the course of it, trying to ascertain how critical it would be in future, and 3, resolving to issue units within the shortest possible time. So set scenarios that show them that you resolve things, you communicate through, you follow the strategies, you follow protocols, and lastly, you don't make mistakes when you are under pressure. What will you do if after issuing out some red cells in an emergency situation, you find out that it turned out to be antibody positive? This is very simple and straightforward. So the protocol is that there are 2 cross matches that you do. 1, it is the immediate spin. In that case, you don't incubate. When you cross match the patient plasma against the unit to be issued and it is compatible, there is no agglutination, you issue it on emergency and give it to them for them to put on a patient. And then as you have already issued, you progress with the I-80. And then the I-80 goes with an incubation for about 15 minutes and a spin for 10 minutes. So in the course of you trying to find out the results for the I-80 compatibility, they have already started the transfusion, and you found out that one of the units is positive. You call them, ask them to halt the transfusion. If it is that unit which was incompatible, you ask them to progress with whichever unit that is compatible. And if none of them was compatible, you ask them to return all and probably resort to an emergency unit. You have to ask them to consult a hematology consultant and also assess the situation that these are the emergency units that are available. And you don't make mistake by trying to be a consultant of your own, which is really, really necessary because you are going to be assessed based on that. So the necessary thing is that you ask them to stop transfusing the unit that has got a problem. If one of them was okay, you ask them to continue with that one, whilst you cross-match more units that may be having a compatible one to continue with the transfusion. So don't stop the compatibility testing when the immediate spin pass. Whilst you issue it, you continue with the I-80, and then if there is any issue with it, you communicate with them. And that is the communication aspect, being proactive, trying to give them an information that is necessary, and then also cross-matching more whilst you try to find a more compatible unit. So that's what you should do. So give them a call, ask them to stop. And if there is any obvious transfusion reaction, you have to make sure you investigate into it. That's very necessary. So those are those things that you need to state as part of this question. And if you don't expect a perfect answer, because they know you are coming in and you will be trained, you'll be introduced to what you have to do. So it's not like you're expecting you to be so perfect, but this is the general idea behind it. And that's what you have to do. Tell us where you have suggested an idea to improve the working pattern in the lab and how it was able to be implemented. You set a scenario on that. I gave them, for instance, there was no way to monitor whether an urgent sample or a routine sample is delaying or not. There was no screen. I suggested to my current work that it will be necessary if you introduce a software or we buy those kind of screens that are able to project turnaround time. It helps to monitor which samples are delaying. It helps the turnaround time to be highly monitored and expedite fishing out samples that are delaying so much, and also facilitate how the clinical team are able to achieve results within the shortest possible time, especially in an emergency situation. So give an example that helped the lab, whether in time management or in accurate results attainment, or maybe concising how you're able to manage a very small staffing to a very large workload. So these are very important things that you could state in there. There could be a question like, what do you understand by going extra mile in the laboratory? And this is not to be explained. When you ask extra mile, meaning they expect more for you to do and you can make statement of, it's just a selfless way of helping the laboratory and fitting into unexpected shifts and impromptus. And you set a scenario that this is something that you do as out of hours to support the lab, especially when you are short staffed in such situation. In the course of the day, you could be approached by a manager to be asked if you can continue a shift. These are things that you do not really for the money that will be added to you, but in a way to ease how your colleagues are able to manage their workload, and also set an example as a serious and a hard-working BMS to support the trust as you promised before your employment was granted. So these statements make them know how you are willing to fit and sacrifice for the job, and it's very important for you. The last thing I'm going to introduce you to here is your qualities should be showcased across all your answers. So all the answers that you are going to give, your qualities should be showcased. One, you should make sure that your statement revolve around attention to details, how you're able to pay attention to details, or how you are able to be trained, your team working skill, how you're able to follow protocols. If you can recall, most of my statements are about protocols, asking manager protocols, because it's really important if you follow the required protocols. Being bold and comfortable and being proactive is really important. Hard working and availability is required in all job interviews. You should be able to prove a point that you are hardworking and you are available to work in most working patterns, and that is necessary. And the IT skills and software skills that you experience in, or you have those skills, is important. Don't forget to mention them if you've worked with one of those: WinPath, Telepath, Macintosh, Epic, PathNet, middlewares like Remisol, Expert, IHCOM, Sysmex, Apple, and Abbott Alinity. Whatever be the system you've worked with, make sure you're able to mention them. And then lastly, if it is an NHS job, grab in your head the NHS values and sing along with it as you answer. And if you are asked, what do you know about the NHS values? You should be able to mention them. And even as at now, I still have some of them in my mind. We are working together to support the patient with respect and dignity. All persons count, or everyone counts. Those things are necessary to them. So don't forget to introduce the NHS values whilst you are answering the questions in your job interview. If you have any question, just jot it down in the comment section, and if I have anything to say about it, I will answer it. And if I have any document to introduce to you, I will do that as well. It's a very good time. It's a long explanations I gave there. I hope it's helpful to you. Enjoy your day, and I wish you well in your job applications, and good luck.